With us in the front window of the Barley House, what would you say to him about why he does not deserve a second term? How would you start off that conversation?
I would start out by saying that he's, the biggest reason is he's tried to advance policies that are detrimental to the security of our country, to the economic growth of our country, and to the very important, to the relationship of government to the people, and all of which are injurious to my children, your children, and the future of America. That we're going to be handing over a country that's going to be weaker economically, weaker from the standpoint of security, and off-center with respect to the role of governments in people's lives. And he came to do, at least the impression was, he came to do just the opposite. And so whatever his intentions, what he's done has failed, and so we need to have someone who can try something different.
Go ahead, Obed.
Yeah, Senator, I suspect if the President were here today, he'd be having a beer with you as well, since he's well known for the beer.
The beer summits.
There would certainly be a beer from New Hampshire as well, I can guarantee you that.
But in terms of the challenges facing our country, clearly jobs is still foremost in people's minds here in New Hampshire and nationally. What kind of strategies would you advance for a pro-growth, recovery strategy that we're not seeing right now? Well,
a combination of things. First off, I believe that energy is tied to growth. You look at every Western democracy, you look at their standard of living, and you look at their energy consumption, and they track identically. The more energy they consume, the higher their standard of living. And so having energy independence in this country, particularly given what's going on in the Middle East, has both a salutary effect on jobs and on growth and wealth. It also has a salutary effect on oil prices and energy prices, which has national security implications. So to me, undoing all of the constraints that Barack, you talk about saying we want energy independence, which is what the president says we want, and he's running around trying to build windmills. I'd ask the president right up. I said, how many windmills? I mean, how much of what you've done on your green energy has reduced the the basic load capacity, the needed load capacity of our coal plants, our gas plants, and everything else? And the answer is zero. Yes, all of this new quote green technology has not changed and altered a bit the load necessary to be created and generated by our fossil fuels. We need to unleash oil, gas, coal, all of the forms of energy that we can produce in this country would be one thing we need to do. Secondly, we unleash the American entrepreneurial spirit. And when you do that, is you stop regulating the heck out of them, and you start imposing new costs and responsibilities. Repeal Obamacare. One of the huge things that's hanging out there over the economy right now is people won't hire because they don't know what their responsibility is and their cost associated with Obamacare. We need to do the same thing with our markets. I mean, we look at what the impact of the regulatory environment that he's created through the Dodd-Frank bill, the financial services bill. Lots of things we need to look at there to repeal, and then finally taxes. I love the fact that he says he wants to reduce the corporate tax. I don't believe it. But we need to reduce the tax burden on American business. We need to liberate them so they can go out and be competitive and create jobs here, because capital can go anywhere it wants in the world right now. We need to make it attractive here for them.
Go ahead, Dean Spiliotis.
Sure, a little change of pace here. Senator Santorum, as a former member of Congress, I'm interested in your opinion on the new Republican majority in the House of Representatives. Speaker Boehner, the Tea Party caucus, the debt ceiling issue, those kinds of things.
And I'll add on to that question a little bit. House Republicans offering to cut $600 million from border security as a part of the budget, as well as immigration, while giving a combined $4 billion for the next fiscal year to Israel and Pakistan. Do they have the correct priorities, in your estimation, in regards to those issues, in addition to Dean's question?
Yeah. Well, let me address that issue. I mean, first, the overall. The overall is that I'm encouraged by what I see of the impact, not just of the new members, but of the people across America. If the Tea Party folks and the folks who got active in this last election want to see the impact that they've had, look at a guy named Paul Ryan. Now, Paul Ryan was the chairman of the new chairman of the Budget Committee, and was a rock star among the Tea Party folks. And Paul Ryan was the leader in the Ryan Roadmap. And the Ryan Roadmap prior to the election was considered the extreme I mean, you know, the cuts that he was suggesting, both in entitlements and domestic spending, were seen as out there on the edge, and he was roundly criticized by everybody. Even a lot of Republicans wouldn't sign up to it. Now, Ryan is a wimp. Okay? No, he's not even a mainstream over. He's a wimp. I mean, he's only wants to do, you know, what he suggested, and now you got folks saying you need to do 10 times that amount. And what's happened? What happened was they moved. Ryan is in that they proposing a bigger, you know, the Republicans have come forward with a almost 3 times the level of reductions in the bill in this continuing resolution. So all of that is because of the election, yes, but the continued involvement of people across America, the continued calls, showing up to town meetings, getting involved. I mean, I just did an event, before I came here. 90 people show up, and energy. You know, they want to know where you are, what you're going to do. You know, how are you going to solve these problems? And I can tell you, I know members of Congress are feeling the same thing when they go back home. So there should be a lot of people should be feeling good that the message is being sent. And I got this question. I've been getting this question at every Tea Party event, which is, back in whatever 90s and the early part of this the decade, you said you were going to do all these things and you never were able to get them accomplished. You were going to cut government, you were going to do entitlements, you're going to do. Says, why didn't you get that done? And my answer is because you weren't there. I mean, because I went out there in 2005 when President Bush said we're going to reform Social Security. Jim DeMint went out. We went out on the floor of the Senate. We spent days debating proposals against Dick Durbin and traveled around the country. But guess what? When I showed up at those town meetings, everybody was against what I was doing. They were saying, "Oh, you can't cut Social Security. Oh, you can't cut this. Oh, you can't cut that." Where were you? Where were the Tea Parties? So to point the finger at Republicans and say, "You guys didn't do your job," I hate to say it, but you guys didn't do your job. Because if you guys were out there doing what you're doing now, then it would have been different in 1996, and it would have been different in 2004. That's what makes this a much more real opportunity to really transform government, is because the people are energized. And let me assure you this: if they don't stay energized, it ain't going to happen. Because Republicans this is tough stuff. And the other side will be energized if we take these cuts. And so you have to stay energized if you want this to happen. As far as the specific cut that you mentioned, that's the first I've heard it, so I don't know all the details.
It was in the Washington Post on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Again,
I don't know what I don't know the details, so it's hard for me to say.
The concern I think that I have, and others who voted potentially for Republicans, is that the concern was wasteful spending. The concern was programs that were unneeded. But you look at serious issues such as immigration, and one would think that would be an area that perhaps you'd even spend a little bit more because of how.
The reason I said that, I'll give me an example, because I haven't seen the article, so I hate to comment on it. But let's say you said $600 million we cut in part of the House spending bill from immigration. Yeah, one of the things I know that's happened is that the administration canceled all the high technology surveillance and fence. There's this high tech fence, which I know was multi-million dollars. My guess is that may be part of that money. So it would be reasonable to cut that. So it's hard for me to say what's behind that number, but on the more general sense, I would not be cutting money to the border, but there may be a good reason to cut the money for the border. That's what I would say.
And I think the other part of Chris's question was foreign aid.
$4 billion.
Yeah.
About that.
Look,
Israel and Pakistan.
I'm a fan of foreign aid. I mean, I'll defend it. I mean, look, your interaction with the rest of the world can't be a gun. I mean, the military is important, and you have to have a military that's out there that's protecting yourselves and is advancing your cause. But you also have to have you also have to have a glove, a soft glove too, and you have to be willing to reach out to meet humanitarian needs. You have to go out and try to work with governments to build relationships, because that can be in the long term a lot less expensive than a gun, and not just expensive from a dollar point, but obviously less expensive from a human point, where you're talking about our men and women in uniform. So foreign aid used properly, I think, is important, and if you look at what we spend on foreign aid versus every other Western democracy, it's less. We spend less than 1% of the budget on foreign aid.
Believe it or not, we are running out of time, so I have one more question. We'll see if Ovid and Dean have one as well. Mine is in regards to governance, and and whether you try to look at the public's will and how you balance that with your personal beliefs. Like, for example, here in New Hampshire, a poll came out where 62% of the New Hampshire citizens say they are against the repeal of gay marriage. How do you take your own personal beliefs, which you obviously hold very dear, and balance that with what the public may or may not want?
We are a republic, not a democracy. We are a democratic republic, and I believe that when you elect someone, you elect them to do what they think is in the best interest of the community and the country. And there are a lot of things that are not popular that are wrong, that are right, and there are a lot of things that are popular that are wrong. And I think what I owe is to do my best and to go out and talk to the folks about why I did what I did, and then let them decide whether that's what they want from their elected official or not. And I'm all about accountability. I get into trouble more often because I answer the question than by avoiding the question. I answer the question because you have a right to know what I think and why I think it, and then you get the chance to make the decision as to whether that's someone you want. And the more transparent you are about who you are and why you think the way you do, the easier it is for people to make a decision as to whether you want someone like that representing you or you want someone like that leading you. And it always drove me crazy as a voter when the guys who are running for office try to hide the ball, try to just be nice to you, try to tell you what you want to hear. Oh, I'm for you. Everybody's for you. That's just a disservice. That's not the way democracies are supposed to, republics are supposed to work.
Final thing from Dean.
Yeah, sure. John McCain, tremendously popular here in 2000 and again in 2008. What do you think went wrong for him?
Well, I mean, it was bad. It was a tough year. I mean, let's say that. It was a tough year in 2008. The economy sort of collapsing in September 2008 didn't help. I think the mortal blow for him was going back to Washington and jumping into bed with everybody in D.C. and
ceasing the campaign and
ceasing the campaign. It showed a little bit of a erratic behavior as far as I was concerned.